Hello, my name is Jen Loki, and this is the chicken wing dissection, September 29th, 2022. Let's do this. I would like to say that this chicken has chosen poorly as far as surgeons, because I did a messy, and it's just a very messy job. Yeah. So here's my tray. Here's my backup chicken wing, just in case I royally mess this one up. And I have some adipose tissue and muscular tissue that I've cut off of this guy. And here is the wing that we will be looking at right here. These are some muscles that I left attached to the shoulder joint here, but I cut them away from the upper arm, so away from the humerus, just so that we could see it better. But I left them attached because I think it's interesting, I don't know, to see how everything attaches. For instance, I left this muscle, and I don't know what it's called because it's part of the muscular system, which we haven't learned yet, but it's on the forearm, and it's interesting to see the tendon where it attaches here, this like shiny white stuff to the joint. This is the wrist joint, the carpal joint, but cool to see, very clear tendon, muscle, bone, attaching those. And how it looks different from ligaments, which are attaching the bone to the bone. Anyway, okay, so here is the head of the humerus right here. Here is the humerus itself right here. I'm trying to be in this, and yeah. And then the arm bones, the ulna is here, and it's thicker, or it has a bigger diameter than the radius on top here, under this muscle. So here's the radius, here's the ulna. And then they attach at the carpal joint or wrist joint here. So the carpals, metacarpals, and then phalanges out here. Okay. So I do have this little whiteboard. I forgot to mention this, a whiteboard that has the things that I need to mention on it, like the parts that I need to point out, and then also the topics I need to cover during this. That's the only notes. Those are the only notes I have. Okay. So we talked about the bones, humerus, ulna, and radius, and the articular cartilage. So once I cut into the articular capsule, which is that fibrous tissue that kind of surrounds this joint. And just on the inside of the articular capsule was the synovial membrane. And the membrane is like really super thin. I'm trying to find remnants of it right now because I feel like once I cut into the capsule, the membrane kind of rolled up, and it's a little bit trickier to find. But the membrane is just this like really thin, almost transparent layer just inside the fibers that make up the capsule itself on the outside. And the synovial membrane is what produces the synovial fluid, which is in theory the liquid that you would find inside this joint. I don't know with the processing of chickens if you see synovial fluid, and it's hard to differentiate that with all of the other goo that's happening here. But there's definite moisture. So I assume that that's at least some of that is the synovial fluid that occurs at the joint to spread nutrients and absorb shock. And let's see here. The articular cartilage is the white stuff on the articular, so the sides of the bones at the joint that face each other. Just a thin but strong type of cartilage there that doesn't have the sheath that other kinds of cartilage do. And then, let's see, cartilage, articular capsule, bones of fluid. Okay, I think that is all, those are all of the, it's really cool how the bones fit together like a jigsaw puzzle. Isn't that cool? That's amazing. Okay, so that is our elbow joint. And one of the, types of diseases that affects the synovial joints would be rheumatoid arthritis. And I actually chose this one because I used to work up in Denali National Park, and there was a lady who worked there for years and years, but when I was there, she would have to walk so incredibly slow, like crazy slow, because she had such bad rheumatoid arthritis. I felt so bad for her. So rheumatoid arthritis changes the joint structure in that there are white blood cells that would normally trigger normal inflammation or normal immune responses when there's some sort of pathogen or microorganism that's causing problems for the body. But in this case, it's an autoimmune disorder, and it just produces an inflammatory response for no apparent reason. So these are specific kinds of white blood cells found in the synovial fluid of joints, of synovial joints. And so they trigger this inflammatory response, and you end up having a ton of extra blood, lymph, like all of the fluids gather at these joints, which causes pressure to be put on nerves that normally wouldn't have that much pressure behind them, and it hurts. Hence walking really, really slow if it's happening in your joints and your ankles and your knees and your hips. So it changes the joint in that the fluid, the amount of fluid there is much more because of that inflammatory response, and the numbers of white blood cells are abnormally high. It looks like from the research that I did that there's not a really well-known mechanism for why those white blood cells do that. I mean, I think that's just all immune or autoimmune diseases. Like, why does your immune system overreact when there's not really a reason to? So that's interesting. I actually think autoimmune diseases are pretty fascinating. There you go. That's it. Say goodbye.